This is Taylor Schabusiness, 25-year-old, who is on trial for a grisly murder in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
There was a human head. There was genitalia in the bucket.
Let me stop you there. What do you mean genitalia?
What I would recognize as a penis and testicles.
On February 23, 2022, Schabusiness strangled her partner, 24-year-old Shad Therian, and subsequently mutilated his body during a night of drug-induced sexual activities. Therian was asphyxiated with a metal chain, and his severed remains were discovered in his mother's cellar. Schabusiness placed Therian's decapitated head in a bucket, while other dismembered body parts were stored in containers, plastic bags, and cardboard boxes. Tara, Therian's mother, uncovered the gruesome scene and contacted 911.
Are you positive my son's head is in a bucket, a young bucket in my basement?
What makes you think that?
Because I looked in the bucket.
What did you see?
Exactly what I told you.
Okay, where's the rest of the body at?
No idea.
The police promptly arrived and discovered bloodstains outside the residence.
Hey. Is this blood? Does this look like blood to you? Or am I just tripping? Bloody footprint? You see this right here? Could possibly be blood.
Upon entry, they uncovered the complete magnitude of the offense.
I had Officer Plunky come downstairs and just verify we had in fact found a human head in the bucket, and then we started to notify a supervisor and then ask for additional units.
Schabusiness was promptly apprehended.
Hi, Taylor. How's it going? Officer Russell with the Green Bay Police Department. Just make sure you ain't got nothing on you here. With Taylor. Taylor, you have one more for your, wrist. Just put your hands behind your back, please.
Anybody else in your apartment?
You got blood on your hands here, too. No, on your hands. Okay.
During the inquiry, Schabusiness elucidated the events of that night. She stated that both Therian and herself engaged in unusual sexual activities, which rapidly escalated to a more sinister nature.
You two being intimate, having sex?
It was getting there.
Just getting there, okay. So will this be considered foreplay?
Yeah, it was. And then, I don't know. And then, I just didn't stop. I don't know why. I didn't stop. Yeah.
So when he put the chain around his neck, he thought that you guys are going to have kinky sex, right? Do you think that's what Jack was thinking? What were you thinking?
I was going to do the same thing. You know, I was going in, and I did. And I went in. But then he was like, choke me. But he didn't really say it, so I'm like, he put it on his neck. I already know I'm going to choke him. And I did.
Under the influence of narcotics, Schabusiness was oblivious to Therian's asphyxiation.
So when did you realize that Shad was not alive anymore?
You know, his face turned purple. He was coughing up blood and he was pissing.
He was pissing himself. His face was all purple.
I still didn't stop.
Upon realizing that her spouse was dying, Schabusiness chose not to intervene and ultimately resolved to kill him.
The chain goes around his neck and you start choking him. And you just realized that he was going to die or what?
I'm just like, I think I went a little too far because I was blacking out while I was doing it, right? And then like, fuck. And then like, I look at him, I'm like, shit, he's already purple. I'm like, fuck. I'm like, I don't know if he's fucking. Is he good? Is he good? But then, like, when I woke up, like, you know, during the blackout moment, I'm like, shit. Like, he was coughing up blood. I'm like, I don't know. I just kept on going. Like, damn. Sorry.
You made a comment. You said that when you were choking, you was coughing up blood. You kind of were like, well, I'm going this far. I'm just going to keep going. Did you realize that by continuing that may kill him?
Like, yeah, because I felt bad because I'm like, damn, he's going to be losing after this. I'm like,
Schabusiness acknowledged that although she did not intend to kill Therian, she ultimately derived pleasure from the act.
Did you want Shad to be dead?
no. I don't know. Like, this is the thing that I have I've always had, you know, like, you ever love something so much that you kill it? Like, it happens to me. That's the feeling that I have. I love something so much that I kill it. Like, I love it so much, and then I kill it. That's what happens to me.
Schabusiness thereafter engaged in sexual assault on Therion's body for a duration of 2 to 3 hours.
I just play with him like
You said play with him, what do you mean?
play with his dick.
Okay.
Like, I put him up over the bed, and then, suck with it.
Schabusiness subsequently dismembered Therion, utilizing knives from his mother's kitchen.
How did you dismember his body then?
Knives.
With what?
Knives.
Knives? More than one knife?
About 4.
But when did you start, cutting up his body?
I don't know, like almost right away. I was sucking and cutting at the same time. I grinded on him, I put the dick in his ass.
You said you cut his head off first, correct?
Yeah.
Can you describe where was he laying on the bed?
I pulled him,
Okay.
like, say this is the bed.
Okay, so this is the top of the bed?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I pulled him, and then his head was hanging off.
So he was probably laying face up. So
Yeah.
his back was on the bed.
Back was on the
His
bed.
head's partially off the bed.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the tub was like right there.
The pail that you had the
Yeah.
head in before? Okay. So basically his head's here and the bucket's right here.
Yeah, and then from there, I severed his.
He cut his head off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ultimately, she discarded the body pieces in her van, but shown negligence by leaving the severed head in a bucket.
What were you thinking?
I was gonna do the same thing. You know, I was going in, and I did, and I went in. But then he was like, choke me, but he didn't really say it, so I'm like, he put it on his neck. I already know I'm gonna choke him, and I did. He likes it,
Alright.
and I was gonna walk him like a dog.
And he wanted that?
I have no idea what I was gonna do it anyway. There was a ring, and there's 2 rings, and then like you can pull the chain link from under the ring, and then pull it back.
Alright, so that a loop at the end of the chain that could go around kind of like a dog choke collar?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, do you think it was a dog choke collar?
Could have been.
Schabusiness was indicted with first-degree deliberate homicide, corpse mutilation, and third-degree sexual assault. Investigators depicted the gruesome crime scene during the trial.
There was a human head. There was genitalia in the bucket.
Let me stop you there. What do you mean genitalia?
What I would recognize as a penis and testicles.
Beyond the stack of mattresses, there appeared to be blood on the floor and then small chunks of human flesh.
The skin, soft tissues, and muscle had been removed from the bone so that it was largely stripped down to the bone itself. Whereas the skin of the back has been removed, also the muscles of the back have been removed so that we have exposed rib cage.
Notwithstanding the heinous nature of her offenses, Schabusiness's subsequent actions nonetheless managed to astonish all. In a moment of fury, Schabusiness assaulted her attorney in the courtroom. Ultimately, it required 2 cops to restrain her.
You went off on your attorney, Taylor. You went crazy on your attorney.
Schabusiness was had to don a spit mask and chains due to her combative conduct and courtroom theatrics. Following a brief trial and barely 50 minutes of deliberation, the jurors arrived at a verdict.
The first verdict reads as follows. We, the jury, find the defendant, Taylor Denise Schabusiness, guilty of first-degree intentional homicide as charged in count 1 of the information.
During sentencing, Therion's relatives had the opportunity to confront his murderer directly.
You chose not to take, I'm sure you knew you had a problem, You can't blame it on childhood. There's help out there. And if you take the path to go get the help, you wouldn't be in this situation right now. None of us would be in this situation. But to take the cowardly path that you did and to make other people suffer because you were suffering is pretty shitty. So that name Taylor Schabusiness fits you well. And I'm not a praying man, but after Judge Walsh's sentences today, I will pray that you meet the same fate as your idealistic Jeffrey Dahmer. So have a good life, shit business.
Therion's uncle likened Schabusiness to Jeffrey Dahmer, while Therion's father forgave her and pleaded for leniency. Judge Thomas Walsh, however, showed no such mercy, sentencing her to life imprisonment without parole.
This crime offends human decency, it offends human dignity, and it offends the human community. It really does. As to in 22 CF 363, count 1, that's the first-degree intentional homicide as a repeater. It's a Class A felony. Going to impose life imprisonment without the possibility of extended supervision.
During Taylor Schabusiness trial, which was replete with harrowing incidents, what transpires when a victim's father assaults the defendant? Like in the case of 39-year-old Michael Madison, who was on trial for multiple murders in Cleveland, Ohio. In 2023, Madison purportedly abducted and murdered 38-year-old Angela Deskins, 28-year-old Shatisha Shealy, and 18-year-old Sherelda Terry, then disposing of their bodies in garbage bags outside his residence in East Cleveland. Authorities discovered decaying human remains in his flat. Madison was apprehended and indicted on 3 charges of aggravated murder. If found guilty, he may face the death penalty. During the trial, the defense asserted that the murders were impulsive and occurred in a moment of passion.
That each one of these individuals was killed with a sudden eruption of violence. He made no effort to bury these bodies and really conceal them, despite the fact that they're in fairly obvious areas.
Nonetheless, the prosecution contended that Madison's acts were deliberate and intentional.
He killed them in the same way, at the same place, and in a short time frame. Then he disposed of their bodies to avoid detection from his crimes. He tied 2 of the victims up with duct tape, placing their legs on each side of their head and bending the body in half.
Ultimately, Madison was convicted on all counts, eliciting cries of joy from the victims' family members. During the sentencing, Van Terry, Sherelda's father, confronted his daughter's murderer.
I guess we're supposed to, in our hearts, forgive this clown. Who's touched our families, taken my child.
He gazed directly at Madison, who smiled at him from off camera. This is when the bereaved father erupted. Terry was promptly grabbed and removed from the courtroom. He did not incur any supplementary expenses. Shortly thereafter, Judge Nancy McDonald spoke to the defendant.
I am struck by the sheer inhumanity of what one human being can do to not one, but 3 human beings.
Ultimately, the moment arrived for the serial killer to receive his sentence.
Accordingly, the sentence of death is imposed upon the defendant, Michael Madison, on counts 1, 4, and 7.
Ultimately, Michael Madison was sentenced to death. He will reside on death row in Ohio. Although Van Terry's courtroom leap was indeed remarkable, how does it measure against a callous murderer grinning at the victim's family? Like in the case of 30-year-old Wade Wilson, who is facing 2 counts of murder in Cape Coral, Florida.
Well, then tell me what happened then. I deserved it.
Killed the...
Why, Wade? Why?
I choked her out till she died. Until she was dead.
So she got in the car by herself.
Yeah.
And you took her out in the car.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Pushed her out of the car. And then you
ran her over. Yeah, like 10 times.
On October 6th, 2019, Wilson encountered 35-year-old Christine Melton at a pub in Fort Myers. Subsequently, the 2 returned to Melton's residence, where Wilson asphyxiated Melton during her slumber, resulting in her demise. Wilson subsequently appropriated Melton's vehicle, proceeded to visit his former partner, Melissa Montanez, and subsequently assaulted her.
It all went so fast and so slow, whether it be punches, slapping, choking, that kind of nature. Yes.
Law enforcement arrived at the location and faced an unclothed Wilson.
What's going on, man? You're waiting on your girlfriend?
However, Wilson successfully evaded them.
Now, 4-1, gonna need a couple more units. Don't go anywhere. Hey!
While driving away, Wilson saw 43-year-old Diane Ruiz and halted to request directions. While Ruiz entered the vehicle unaware, Wilson strangled her, subsequently pulled her unconscious form onto the roadway, and repeatedly drove over her.
Had been strangled. And what we also know is that she died as a result of blunt force trauma because of the multiple rib fractures.
Wilson subsequently contacted his father, Stephen Testaseca, and admitted his transgressions.
He just told me, you know, he did something. There was 2 people gone that would not be back. He said, I'm a killer.
Testaseca provided law enforcement with his son's whereabouts, resulting in Wilson's arrest and subsequent charges of first-degree murder, grand theft, and violence.
Mr. Wilson, you're charged with first-degree murder, grand theft auto.
During the trial, Testaseca provided testimony against his son, the perpetrator of the murder.
Did he end up calling you later that evening?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did he tell you in that call that evening?
He just said he met a girl at a bar. They went back to her house, hung out for a little bit, and then she fell asleep. He said he got on top of her and choked her. He said, I choked that.
What did he say about the second girl?
He said he reached over and choked her. He said that he pulled her out of the car and realized that she was still breathing. He said he got back in the car and ran her over until she looked like spaghetti.
Testaseca stated that Wilson exhibited pride in his crimes and had no sorrow during the confession.
What's his demeanor as he's telling you?
He was excited.
Wilson exhibited minimal emotional response throughout the trial. Following a mere 90 minutes of deliberation, the jury rendered a verdict of guilty on all counts.
We, the jury, find by a vote of 9-3 that Wade Wilson should be sentenced to death.
Judge Nick Thompson must now determine whether the serial strangler will get a life sentence or face execution for his offenses.
The defendant is hereby notified that these convictions and sentences are subject to automatic review by the Florida Supreme Court. Wade Stephen Wilson be sentenced as follows. Count 1, first-degree murder of Christine Melton. The defendant is hereby sentenced to death. Count 4, first-degree murder of Diane Ruiz. The defendant is hereby sentenced to death.
Wilson received the death penalty for the heinous murders of Christine Melton and Diane Ruiz.